Welcome, everyone, to the Gardenerd Tip of the Week podcast, where garden nerds from around the world talk shop, share stories, and offer their favorite tip. I'm your host, Christy Wilhelmi. Nerd alert, listeners. My guest this week is here to talk about growing and pressing your own edible oils. Bevin Cohen runs Small House Farm in central Michigan, where he and his family run a homestead and herbal apothecary. He's also the author of The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, among other books. Thanks for chatting with me, Bevin.
Hey, Christy, thanks so much for having me on the show.
Of course. Well, let's talk about Central Michigan. How's farming in Central Michigan these days?
Well, it is all over the place. The weather has been not as cooperative as we would like. It's been getting pretty cold at night still.
Oh, really?
So we've been doing, oh yeah, it got down to 32 last night. So we've been moving a lot of plants and, keeps us on our toes, keeps us busy, but, things are moving along and, it's as good as it's going to get. You just got to work with what you get, right?
Yeah. And I'll just mention that we're recording this in May on the 25th. So by the time people hear this, the weather will be completely different, I imagine. But if you can, take us on a quick tour of your homestead. What do you have growing there?
Oh, there's a lot of things growing right now. So our property is about 3.5 acres total. And out there currently we have got a number of different broccolis and cabbages and kales and spinach and lettuce and carrots and turnips and rutabagas and radishes and all sorts of groovy stuff going on. And then in the greenhouses, because it's not quite warm enough right now to go out, we've got, the tomatoes and the peppers and the eggplants and all the things. A lot of different stuff going on. And we're just waiting for the window to move things out. But what's really nice about where we're at here at Small House is, it's very rural. So we're on a dead end dirt road. We're across the street from 1,100 acres of forest. So
Wow.
we have the opportunity. Yeah, it's incredibly nice. Very peaceful. So we do a lot of foraging and stuff out there as well. So there's always something going on. Even when the garden isn't providing, Mother Nature's always got lots of goodies for us. So.
Are you bringing mushrooms in right now or have been?
Well, actually, we grow shiitake mushrooms on logs. We cultivate a bunch of those, and those are just getting popping right now. So yeah, we've been doing the shiitakes are coming in, and that's been really nice. We've been growing shiitake mushrooms now for 6 years, I want to say. And what's cool about it is every year we'll inoculate some new logs, but the logs that we've inoculated in the past, they'll continue to put out, for a multitude of years. So now we're getting into a place where when a good flush comes on, we got so many mushrooms, we don't even know what to do with them all.
Yeah, I imagine that's kind of like zucchini in the summer, right?
It's exactly like that.
Well, before we get to your book, I hear you're a big seed saver. In fact, one of your books is about that. When did you start seed saving and why?
Oh, wow. So, I've been an avid seed saver. So we'll say mildly obsessed for probably about 10, 12 years or something now. And it really kind of snuck up on me. I'd been a gardener for much longer than that and hadn't really saved any seeds. Didn't really, I guess I didn't even really think about it, It's so funny how we don't think of such obvious things until somebody points it out to us, and I met a gardener who maintained a historic garden, historically like a replication of what gardens would have been like in the 1800s. And they did a lot of seed saving there. And I was so curious about what that was, what's the deal here? And he shared some seeds with me. And he said, you take these seeds home and grow them in your garden and save your seeds and share them with your friends. And so I did. And it changed everything for what we do here at the farm. There was just something so special about being able to save and share these seeds. Not only the simple economics of it, right? Like, I don't have to buy seeds if I save my own seeds. But then these seeds from my garden produce better vegetables. And they every year adapt and become better and better right here, growing them in the soil. Then I have the opportunity to share these seeds with my community so they can grow better vegetables too. And through this, we preserve all of this history, and all of these stories are all inside of these little seeds that we get to save and share. And it's pretty much the coolest thing ever. And like I said, mildly obsessed. That's an understatement, really.
Yeah, so much that you wrote a book about it, which I will point to people in the show notes for this as well. We'll point to where everybody can get all of your books. What are some of your favorite seeds to save?
Who are my favorite children? Well, What kind of a question? How do I answer this? What are my favorite seeds to save? Well, of course, I love saving beans. Beans are a really nice one. They're very simple. That's something that everybody can do. Even beginning seed savers, I always recommend starting with beans. Not only are they easy to grow, but they're very easy to save seeds from. And beans are beautiful. They're a staple crop. They provide us with a lot of nutrients, but they're also just gorgeous little, like jewels. These just precious little gifts. So that's always one that I enjoy. We save a lot of tomato seeds. Tomatoes are so bountiful. We get a lot of tomatoes from our farm, and then all those tomatoes come with lots and lots of seeds. And so that's always exciting to save, just because seeds are just so exponential. They give so much back to us. So that's always a fun one. But I don't think there's a seed that I don't like saving. I think I enjoy all of them.
Well, you mentioned that you are growing Brassicaceae plants. Do you save those seeds? And if so, what kind of isolation distances do you need for that?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. So when we're dealing with pollination that involves insects, which we would with a lot of these broccolis and cabbages and that sort of thing, you're looking at a physical isolation that you'd want between your plants of like 2.5 miles. And I don't have that kind of space, right? Who's got that?
Right.
Nobody that I know. So we do have to have some sort of an isolation. And when you're dealing with insects and isolation, it can kind of be a tricky thing. So what we do is we actually rotate the crops that we're going to choose to save seeds from. We'll grow a few different species of brassicas, which helps. And then some of them are biennials and some of them are annuals. So it takes a lot of planning coming into it so I can make sure that none of these plants that are of the same species are flowering at the same time. So we can't save seeds from all of them necessarily each time. But with a good plan, we can save seeds from quite a few of them. And again, they produce a lot of seeds. You get a lot of seeds off of one flower stalk. So it doesn't take a lot to get plenty of seeds, not only for our farm, but for our community as well.
And are you using, say, like a mesh fabric or something to keep the pollen drift from, or not pollen drift, but cross-pollination from happening?
Well, now the trick with that is when you use a mesh bag, and that's a common technique that you'll see for self-pollinating plants, right? And we can do that with tomatoes and eggplants and that sort of thing, essentially stopping insects from bringing pollen from other varieties over here and cross-pollinating these plants. But when we're dealing with an insect, a broccoli plant, although it has a perfect flower, is not self-compatible, right? So we need to bring pollen in from another plant. So to do that, we could utilize row cover if we wanted to cover a number of plants of the same variety to allow the insects to get in there and do their thing. But it can be a tricky thing, like I said, when we're dealing with insects. So to avoid that, we don't really mess with mesh bags with those types of plants. We really just plan out and isolate our plants through planting times.
Okay. And so, like you said earlier, you're really only letting certain ones go to seed at the same time so that you're able to control it a little bit more that way.
Absolutely right. And it takes a lot of planning and observation. You got to spend a lot of time walking around in the garden to see when things are getting ready to flower and that sort of thing. And sometimes you got to stop it. If those plants aren't scheduled to be flowering, they're going to do whatever they want to do. So we got to get out there. The benefit of this, especially with these brassicas, is that the flower buds are delicious. So if they're getting ready to flower and it's not when I would like them to be, it's okay. We can just bring them into the kitchen and enjoy them that way.
Nice. And I kind of want to go back and ask you a little bit about your farm, a little more about your farm. Are you doing fruit trees there as well?
We don't really do a lot of fruit trees here. Unfortunately, I would like to do more of that. When we first moved here, when we first bought this property, we were gifted some pear trees as like a housewarming gift. And we did put those into a little spot. So we got a little pear orchard that we put together, but quickly realized that we kind of have limited space for the amount of stuff that we wanted to do here. So we had to make some tough choices on what do we have room for and what don't we. And fruit trees can tend to take up some space. And we have limited sun. That's really the greatest challenge that we have here, Christy, is being tucked into the woods. We have limited sun. So that's like prime real estate out there.
Got
And I
it.
thought, well, do I want to dedicate it to fruit trees or do I want to grow more tomatoes? And at the end of the day, tomatoes always win.
Tomatoes always win. That's the reason people garden most of the time, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess you could say I invited you onto this podcast for completely selfish reasons because I have behind me, on the desk behind me, a package with a partially assembled oil press that's been sitting there for, and I'm not kidding, 5 years. I read your book to get up the courage to dive more into oil pressing, hoping that this would be the thing that would get me off the fence. So remind me and share with others, everyone listening, why should we press our own oils?
Oh gosh. So there's so many reasons why you should press your own oils. Number one, the freshest oils are absolutely the most delicious. When you press your own oils, you're literally getting it as fresh as it could possibly be, and the flavor profile is at its peak. When we buy commercial oils from the grocery store, they are, let's say, relatively old, quite
Hmm.
old.
Hmm.
6 months old is to be a generous statement, sometimes quite older than that. And they're going through warehouses and trucks, and the fluctuations of temperatures really degrade the quality of these oils. Even the nicest oils at the grocery store aren't even close to as nice as what you can press at home. They are absolutely home pressed oils are absolutely far superior for sure.
Yeah, and you do mention in the book a whole series of processing that happens with commercial oils and how it's stripped of everything that really makes it wonderful in order to be shelf stable, right?
Oh, absolutely. And that's you're going to find that with a lot of your oils. You're right. They go through a series of bleaching and deodorizing and degumming and all sorts of things to make them shelf stable. They're taking out all the colors and the flavors and the nutrients. But even if you can buy quality expeller pressed oils at your grocery store. You know, they're the more expensive ones, but it's absolutely worth paying a little bit more for them. But even those aren't as good as the ones that you could press at home. When you can get it, I mean, fresh from the seed, it is so good. When you think about it, oil is a staple food. We utilize oil in our kitchen almost with every meal, certainly every day,
I
right?
certainly do. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. And when we think about staple foods, we might think about beans, we think about grains. Definitely in the local food movement, there's a lot of action around localized grains, and that's such a cool thing. But we rarely talk about oils, even though we utilize them just as often in the kitchen. So I think that getting people out there learning how simple it is to produce their own oil at home, I think we can take some huge leaps and bounds forward to having a truly local food system.
Yeah, I remember when I was a lot more into the idea, this was before the pandemic, of self-reliance, and oil pressing was part of that because we really take oils for granted. Fats are essential for cooking. And have you ever tried to make a scrambled egg in water instead of butter or oil? And it's just like
Right.
really not as good. It's not as, it doesn't, it sticks to the pan. It's like all things wrong. But essentially, I guess in the old days when animals were being rendered on the property and the lard was being put to use, that's where most of the fats came from. But for those of us who are living in cities or urban environments or even suburban environments and even out in the woods, oils are something we just take for granted. We go to the store and we buy them. But if we can make our own, that pushes us a little further into the self-reliance category. So can you explain briefly the basic process of what is involved in pressing your own oil?
Sure. So I guess at the beginning we would have to source our seeds. The seeds are nuts that we want to press, and that's quite simple to do. A lot of them can be grown right in our gardens. I always recommend sunflower oil to people as a great place to get started because sunflowers are a crop that most people can grow all the way through its life cycle to a seed harvest pretty much wherever they're at, right? So that's a good place to get started. We got to source our seeds. You can grow your own, like I said, sunflowers. You could forage them. So we're going to talk about maybe walnuts or hazelnuts or something like that. Or you could just source them from local growers. And that's something you could do for almost any seed and nut oil crop. You're sourcing them from a grower. So then we got to acquire the seeds. So we've done that. Now we get the machine. And it's a relatively inexpensive machine. We offer them on our website as well. You can actually buy, here's a quick plug, you can buy the hand cranked oil press as well as my book, The Complete Guide to Seed and Nut Oils, together in a little bundle set right on my website. So then you're going to have to get the oil press, whether from me or any other source, right? You got the press, you set it up, you run the seeds through it. And the technology here is incredibly simple. That oil press that you have there, there's essentially only three parts to it. It's the main body, there's a graduated turn screw, and then there's the crank to turn it,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's all there is. So the seeds go into this thing, the screw squeezes those seeds forward, utilizing pressure. That's all that's happening here. Utilizing pressure to squeeze those seeds to get the oil out. And this technique, this technology is how people have been pressing oil from seeds and nuts. I mean, since, well, I mean, they talk about it in the Bible. And
Right.
that's
It goes
a
way back.
relatively old book. That goes way back, right?
Yeah.
It's very, very simple. And it's such a perfect technology that it has not been improved upon. It's the exact same technology that we use right here at Small House Farm.
Okay. And now I know that there's a heat element involved because you do have to warm the metal a little bit in order to help facilitate the extraction of oil. And I kind of find it funny that you have to use, or at least it comes with, an oil lamp. So you have to use oil to press oil. And some have suggested that you can use a candle. Have you ever tried that? Does a candle actually work?
I have not used a candle, but I'm sure it would be the exact same principle, right? Just heating that metal a little bit. The only trick maybe to a candle would be you'd have that dripping wax that you'd have to contend with.
Hmm.
Aside from the oil lamp, it's pretty self-contained. There's no mess to it. But aside from that, it's the same thing. It would be the same. I also recommend for a lot of seeds and nuts that we actually warm the seeds before we put them through the press.
That was something that was the first time I'd ever heard it when I read your book. I was like, what do you mean warm these? That had never occurred to me. So talk about that a little bit more.
Well, just like the principle of heating up the press to help coax some of those oils out, if we can heat those seeds and nuts up just a little bit, right? Just that heat is going to help bring those oils to the surface. It's going to make it easier for us to press. We will increase our yields quite notably by heating up a lot of those seeds and nuts. And sometimes we can actually improve the flavor. We could take something like peanuts or walnuts, sesame, toast them,
Yeah.
run them through the press. Ah, it's delicious, right?
And so you have instructions for about how long to heat each of those seeds you're talking about generally, right?
Oh yeah, for each of the seed crops that we talk about, well, from every step, from how to grow and forage, harvest, process, and store the seeds, to the temperatures that you want to heat them to the temperatures that you can utilize them in the kitchen, how to store the oils. We touch on every bit of the process from beginning to end.
Yeah, it's a really it is the complete guide to
I
seed and
appreciate
nut
that.
oils.
When I started doing this, we've been pressing oil on the farm since 2013. And when I got started, there was no literature to be found. There wasn't a book like this. There wasn't any information. I mean, I might be able to find like an old YouTube video or something, but there
Yeah.
wasn't really anything good. And so I learned a lot through trial and error, mostly error, lots of
Hmm.
error. That's how
Lots of
life is,
air.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, especially because I know there is a sweet spot on the device where you have to turn it to a certain point where there's the right amount of pressure, because if there's too much pressure, it clogs up, and if there's not enough, it doesn't really press. So do you have any advice around that?
Well, that's can I say read the book?
Yeah.
That'd be my best advice. And it really just comes down to getting a feel for it. For
Mhm.
because each seed and nut is different. You got something very soft like a sunflower seed. A sunflower seed out of its shell is very, very soft, but then you get maybe a flax seed, and a flax seed is very hard. So the amount of pressure, the rhythm, the speed at which you run the crank is going to vary, to maximize your yields. So you really get a feel for it the more that you do it. I mean, you're going to get the oil no matter how you do it, running it through the press, but you can maximize your yields with just a little bit of experience. And it doesn't take long. The beauty of the whole thing, I think, is that when we think about how much oil do we use at home in a day, it could be a tablespoon, it could be more. If you're making salad dressing, maybe, 8 ounces or something, but it's not a lot of oil. So it doesn't take a lot of time or effort or seed to produce the amount of oil that you need for that day, right? So I would say press the amount that you need for the week and then work with that. You don't want to press a whole bunch in advance, because then you're just storing oil, and you don't want that. You want the freshest oil possible. So just press a little bit each week, and you'll just kind of get a feel for it as you go, and you'll get better and better at it, just like anything else in life.
So you keep your oil press kind of set up all the time?
Pretty much, yeah, for sure. Sometimes it's got to come up and we take down. We've been taking our oil press with us. We do workshops at like the Mother Earth News fairs and other events like that, and I'll bring the oil press with me for those sorts of things to do demonstrations. So we'll deconstruct it and take it, but it's pretty simple. Like I said, it's only the few parts, so it comes apart and goes back together pretty simple.
That's good. I'm serious when I say this thing is right behind me. The main unit is propping up my books that I have on display behind me, so that
Well, that's one use for
I
it.
know it's one use for it, but I really, because I got so far as to mount it on a piece of wood that I can then clamp to a piece of furniture that I don't want to damage. But I got stuck on the lamp oil, to be honest. I was like, this is crazy. I wonder if I can use one of my beeswax candles that I make. Maybe that would work. So you're giving me inspiration to just try it and do it and not be so afraid, because I also have, and this leads to my next question. I'm in love with pumpkin oil. And so I grew naked pumpkin seeds, or, seed, the hullless pumpkins. in order to grow those out and save them and press them. And they're still in a jar behind me, but eventually that's going to happen. What are some of your favorite seeds to use for oil?
Okay, well, you're definitely on the right track with the pumpkin seed oil,
Yes,
because that is so good. And you can easily grow pumpkins, right? And you can get those hull-less, the naked ones. That's one of the originals, right? As far as pumpkin seed oil goes, is a hull-less seed, and they've developed a number of new cultivars that have that trait. What I find with a lot of those is that, when you breed a plant for one trait, you kind of lose other traits. And a lot
yeah,
of those wonderful hull-less seeds, the pumpkins themselves are pretty bland.
yeah, they are.
One of my favorites is actually butternut squash.
Oh,
Butternut squash, easy to grow, stores really well. It's got a shell on the seed, but you can run that right through the press. That's no big deal at all. And that's a delicious oil. So squash seed oil, whatever, variety of squash you want to grow, that's a winner for sure. Like I said earlier, sunflower is a great place to get started. What I like about sunflowers is not only are they easy to grow, it's easy to harvest, but it's one of those seeds that you don't have to take the shell off either. You can run it right through the press. I actually have found, in my experience, when I run sunflower seeds with the shell on, I get better yields than when I take the shell off. And
oh,
I
because
can
it's
only
hard.
assume it's
It's
hard, right? So
hard,
it's creating
right?
more pressure in there,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that
It
makes
seems
sense.
obvious once you say it, but when I discovered it, I was like, whoa, like what a
Yeah.
game changer that is. So sunflowers is a great way to go, and it's such a nice oil too. It's an oil that you can utilize, for cold culinary, like your pumpkin seed oil. You can use it topically in your herbal medicines if that's what you're into. You can use it to saute and stir fry. It's a great oil, very versatile. Another one that we press a lot of here is hemp seed oil. And hemp seed oil I recommend to everybody for every purpose. Not only is it a wonderful topical, but it is incredibly nutritious. It's something that you definitely want. And again, you don't have to shell those seeds. They can run them right through that press. You get that delicious oil. We've got an organic hemp seed farmer that's, I don't know, maybe 20 miles down the road from here. So I can go source locally grown organic hemp seed right from the guy. I can shake his hand, get the seeds, bring it home and press it. And then, we
Wow.
offer the oil on our website. So if anybody listening is interested in organic hemp seed oil, you can try mine, and then you're going to fall in love with it and then go press your own. That's what I want you to do ultimately.
Is it kind of grassy in flavor, would you say?
That's a good adjective. It's very green.
Yeah.
It certainly is. It's definitely got a green, but it's nutty. It's got a nutty green flavor. I guess those would be the words to describe it for sure. But what's
Yeah.
really cool about pressing these seeds is the seed cake, the leftovers.
Right.
It's a zero waste process. The seed cake that comes out the end is completely edible, still nutritious. It's wonderful stuff. So I will take a lot of the seed cake, and I'll run it through a little mill to turn it into a nice fine powder, and I bake with it. I put it in pancakes. You can put it in smoothies. We get to a point, especially at the peak. There was a period in time early in our oil pressing career where we were really striving to have a commercial oil pressing business, when we were
Mm.
selling oil through co-ops, and then we moved into a commercial kitchen. It was quite a thing. And we were running through 1,800 pounds of hemp seed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a lot. And it was more seed cake than I knew what to do with. So I started feeding it to our animals. We
Right.
have chickens, we used to have pigs back then. And it's so good for them. They loved it. You could see it in the flavor of the eggs and the meat. It's such an awesome thing. But the best part of this is, like I'm saying, is it's zero waste. Even your byproduct is completely useful.
Yeah. My plan was to give the seed cakes to our chickens because they love black oil sunflower seeds. So I figured the press cake would be really good for that. All of that would be good. So yay.
Absolutely. We were selling at the farmers market. We were selling, they would be hemp fed eggs, eggs from hemp fed chickens, and we'd get $1 more per dozen than any of the other guys at the market.
Amazing.
You know,
Wow.
yeah.
Now you mentioned in the book, you have a hookup for the turn crank. You hook it up either to a bicycle or a small motor. Have you done this, and how involved is that?
Oh, I've done it, absolutely. And it's not as involved as it might sound. I mean, there's some steps to it, and that's why we talk about it in the book. I want to walk you through how to do that, because it was a game changer for us for
It's
sure.
a huge improvement over cranking with your hand and having to change people. Like you're 5 minutes, go. Right.
Well, right, exactly. And this was again when we were really striving to produce a lot of oil. It was physically impossible for me to do that by hand
Yeah.
like that. We did eventually upgrade and buy an electric machine,
Mm.
a commercial oil pressing machine, but I don't recommend that to anybody. There's no, unless you're going into a commercial business, nobody needs that much oil, and it's very expensive. So I said, well, what are some alternatives that we can do here? And of course, hooking the oil press up to a motor essentially creates a motorized machine for a fraction of the cost. So we walk you through how to do that. Very, very simple. But the coolest is the bicycle. And if you go to your local bike parts supply guy and you can buy the average sprocket, it's exactly the size that you need. It fits right on to the turn screw. It's absolutely perfect, like almost like they were meant to go together. And then you just run it off a bike. So we've gone it through a number of ways, and we talk about it in the book, how to get a bicycle to become a stationary bicycle, which is first a challenge, and then we eventually upgrade to a stationary bicycle, which was obvious, which made a big difference. The trickiest part of the whole process is the amount of pressure. There's a lot of pressure when you're pressing it by hand. You're kind of leaning on the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's clamped into that one spot. But when you're doing it on a bicycle, you are,
There's
couple
a
feet in
greater
front of it.
distance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so you need something to hold that thing in place. And so what I always recommend is if you can attach your press to a stationary object, that's what you got to do. Mount it to your deck or onto your porch, or clamp it onto the tailgate of a pickup truck. Something to hold that thing in place, and then you'll be pressing oil in no time. You put the kids on there, you dangle a carrot in front of them, and they just go.
Child labor, yay! Awesome. Well, it is tip time. Do you have a favorite tip you'd like to share with the Garden Nerd audience?
I got so many tips. This was a hard one to come up with. But you know what? The end of the day, the best tip I think I can give to everybody is to keep planting seeds. And I mean that literally, not figuratively. Always plant seeds. Some people tend to think of gardening as like a one and done. We plant our seeds in the spring, we weed during the summer, and we harvest in the fall. But we can plant seeds all year long. All summer when I'm out in my garden, I got a pocket full of radish seeds and a pocket full of cilantro seeds, and I am constantly planting seeds so I can have a continual harvest. Come late summer, I'm planting all my fall crops again, right? And I can get all the spinach and lettuce and cabbage and broccoli that my heart desires all fall by continually planting seeds. So just get out in the garden, put some seeds in that soil, and you're going to be rewarded with some tasty crops.
Thank you for that reminder, because succession planting is not something that people with very little space think about very often. So it is something that we can do as soon as it's kind of the square foot gardening model, where as soon as a square foot becomes available, you put something else in, no matter what time of year it is. So that's a great tip. Thank you so much, Bevin.
Oh, of course, of course.
Thank you so much for sharing your time with us, Bevin, and all these juicy information about your new book. In addition to this book that we've been talking about and a few others you've written, you've just contributed to a series of 5 books. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right. We just did Grow Great Vegetables for Timber Press. So it's a series of 5 books focused specifically on the states by me here: Michigan, Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, and Wisconsin. And it's part of a greater series of books that Timber Press has put together, focused on growing great vegetables in all of the states.
That's wonderful. And a lot of work. So people, check those out. Where can people find you online?
People can find me all sorts of places. The easiest, of course, is going to be at our website, which is smallhousefarm.com. And that's going to have links to our Instagram and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. And if they love podcasts, and I know that they do because they're listening to this one, they could check out our podcast as well, seedsandweedspodcast.com.
Nice. Seeds and weeds, because life is full of seeds and weeds, isn't it? And we're going to be seeing you at the Heirloom Expo as well, aren't you? Are you going to that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm once again organizing the seed swap at the Heirloom Expo this year. Everyone should come out, check it out, and bring some seeds.
I will be there too. I'll be speaking. I'm not sure what my topic will be yet, but I will be speaking there as well. I'm excited to say it's in Ventura this year, which is just about an hour north, well, a couple hours north of Los Angeles. So I'll be heading out that way to see everyone in Ventura County. Looking forward to it. And we'll have to hook up, Bevin, for sure.
Absolutely right.
All right, garden nerds, you'll find a link to Small House Farm and Bevin's website this week on Gardenerd.com. We'll also point you to his apothecary store and where to find the complete guide to seed and nut oils, as well as his other books. That's it for this week. Subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen. Visit us for tons of free gardening information at Gardenerd.com. Consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free stuff we do here at Garden Nerd. And you'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter under Garden Nerd 1, on Facebook as Gardenerd.com, and of course, our Garden Nerd YouTube channel. Happy gardening!